And earlier on the show, we heard how college leaders are calling on the government to make lessons on global warming compulsory. They say the UK is unlikely to reach its net zero target without change. So how do we put climate change into the curriculum? Vicky, to you first of all then, and just to give you a statistic, less than 1% of students are on a course with broad coverage of climate education. You can see that fact there. So how important do you think it is to have climate change in education for those over 16?
I think it's very important. But of course, there are two aspects of climate change education. One is to make people aware of what the issues are so they behave in a different way themselves for the future, more responsibly. The other one is to upgrade their skills or make sure that the skills in the curriculum that exists are fit for whatever it is that we want to do in the future. The green jobs that are being announced, for example, with the net zero strategy, an extra 450,000 supposedly, which has been a figure that we've been talking about for the past 15 years in my memory. So it is really whether we're talking about upskilling, and if we know really what those skills are likely to be needed, which they are going to be needed in the future, that we're not quite sure at present, given that technology is still unclear, and there could be all sorts of areas of activity that will be taking place in the future that we can't even imagine right now. So the question is, what do we upskill our people for? And are we basically talking about everything being done in a green way? In other words, having a lot less emission for every ounce of production that we have in the future, rather than the way we do things at present. So a bit of an unknown there.
Okay.
And if you're going to be teaching it, what exactly are you going to be telling your students?
Bob, do you think that's a fair point?
Yes, but it's important to remember that students before 16 already are taught about climate change as part of the national curriculum, both in science and in geography. So beyond 16, it's a conversation about how to put it in, not just in science and in environment, but also in other subjects such as economics and law. And I know that students at LSE, for instance, London School of Economics, where I am, really do want to learn more about climate change and the way it's affecting all aspects of our lives and our economy.
Well, that's so interesting, isn't it, Vicky? And some people might say this idea is pushing at an open door. I mean, we've seen all the school strikes. A lot of those children are actually younger than 16, but there is an enthusiasm, you might say, amongst younger people that is perhaps not there in some of the older generations.
The interesting thing is that when you do surveys about climate change and awareness and whether you want to do something about it, we find that all generations in the UK certainly seem to be quite committed to it and understand the issues. So it's not just confined to any particular age group. But what worries me is that there has been this huge cut in funding for further education. In other words, reskilling the older population, those who may need to change their jobs or the way they do their jobs. And that funding needs to be restored if we are at all serious about ensuring that the population we have at present, who is in the labour force and always about to get into the labour force, is able to deal with things for the future.